Broncos country, welcome back to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. My name is Parker and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me here in this video. Now in today's video, we're going to be going over all of the Denver Broncos current free agents that are set to hit free agency here in about a week-ish. Actually now that I think about it, it's like 2-ish weeks. But nonetheless, we're going to be looking at all the Denver Broncos upcoming free agents, and I'm going to go over my opinions on whether I think we should re-sign them or let them walk and head to another team. Now, of course, these are just my opinions. Of course, the front office is going to do what they think is best for the roster, and this is nothing personal against any of these players. This is just kind of what I think is going to happen with the free agency around the corner. Now, I am going out of town for a few days, so I wanted to upload a video for you guys because I will still be watching the Combine, but I'm not going to have any Combine-related videos probably until next weekish, so I just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, we're going over every single Denver Broncos free agent, and I'm going to let you know if I think we should re-sign them or let them walk in free agency. Now, as always, before we get things started, I just want to remind you that Jesus is King, and I pray that you give your life to Him. He's got a plan and a purpose for you, and I truly hope that you accept Jesus with your whole heart and believe that He died on the cross for your sins, because if you believe that, that's how you go to heaven. It's grace through faith. It's not through any works that we are saved. Although going to church and doing good works are good, it's not what saves us. It's solely through the works of Jesus and His sacrifice and resurrection on the cross. So I just hope that you give your life to Him, and it's an important message to me that I'm going to spread before every single video. A lot of people won't like it, but I don't care. It's important to me, and so even though I have this small platform, I'm going to try and share the news with as many people as possible. And now, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump in to the Denver Broncos free agents. So before we get into the free agents themselves, we're going to be going over the cap space. And so I'll be basing these re-signings and I guess the players who will walk as well on our current cap space or the potential future cap space of the Broncos. I will also solely be basing this off who I want to bring back and who I think the Broncos will try and bring back depending on how much cap space they clear this offseason. Because there could be some cap casualties. Of course, we're most likely going to release Russell Wilson, which would free up some cap space as well. So I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert in the cap. You know, I'm still trying to learn and get better at the cap and, you know, how general managers navigate the cap and how everything works, because there's often times where you delay money in the contract, you can restructure to take less money up front, but then extend it out in the long term. There's a whole bunch of stuff I'm still learning, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, but I'm just going based off of who I want to bring back and who I think the Broncos will try and bring back depending on how much cap space we clear this offseason. So starting off, our first free agent is going to be Josey Jewell, one of our inside linebackers. So taking a look at our current inside linebacker depth, it looks like this: Josey Jewell, Alex Singleton, Jonas Griffith, Justin Strnad, and Ben Niemann. Now, you might notice that Drew Sanders is not here, and that is because recently George Paton said, it was George Paton or Sean Payton when they were doing the meetings or the interviews for the Combine, they said that Drew Sanders most likely is going to move to edge, which is what he was recruited for at Alabama. Of course, transferred to Arkansas, moved to inside linebacker, and I personally wouldn't mind if Drew Sanders decided to play at inside linebacker or the Broncos wanted to keep him at inside linebacker for another year. But I do understand moving him to edge. That's what he played at the end of the season. So I'm not leaving him on here right now because currently he's going to be projected as an edge rusher. And you can also see Justin Strnad as an upcoming free agent. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, Josey Jewell, one of our starting inside linebackers, is going to be a free agent. Now, to me, it's tough on if we want to bring him back or not, because we could go after a guy like Patrick Queen of the Ravens. I don't know if they're going to let him go, honestly. There's other guys who we could sign at inside linebacker. I guess we could also try and draft one early, but I think we have bigger needs. Here's Josey Jewell's stats. I have him re-signing. I kind of messed up on the transition. It's supposed to be a reveal, but you do see him re-signing. There's his stats from last season. And I have him re-signing, and it's not necessarily going to be on a long-term contract. I could see it being a 1 year or another 2 year deal, which he re-signed as his most recent deal, like obviously 2 seasons ago. But yeah, I see it maybe in the short term because if the Broncos can't get Patrick Queen, and I don't know if the Broncos are even going to target Patrick Queen because quite frankly, I don't know how much cap space we have, and if we're going to make a big free agent signing, I think it's going to be for a premier edge rusher. But for me, I think Josie Jewell re-signing on a short 1 to 2 year deal would be beneficial for the Broncos, but we'll have to see obviously what they do. Next up, we have kicker Will Lutz. You can see his stats from this season. When he was traded to the Broncos, played in all 17 games, made 30 of his 34 field goals, struggled really in that first game, and it was kind of an adjustment. He kicked in a dome for a majority of his career. Then he comes to a non-dome stadium, kicking with altitude. Obviously, you talk about baseball at altitude and how it affects the pitches and the breaks on the pitches. It can kind of be the same thing, I think, with kicking. Obviously, you get more leg room and you're going to kick it farther with altitude, but I think the altitude maybe affected his kicking, sort of. That's just a guess, though. I have no evidence to back that up. But you can see he made about 88% of his field goals, made 29 of his 31 extra point attempts. That's about a 93.5% conversion. Well, it's not about. It's a 93.5% conversion on the extra point attempts. And from the little rumblings that I've heard on Twitter, I definitely think that the Broncos are going to sign him to a multi-year extension. I don't think it's going to be crazy like when we signed Brandon McManus to that 5-year extension a couple years back, but I could see it being a 2 to 3 year deal for kicker Will Lutz. Honestly, I think he's a very solid kicker. It took him a little bit of time to adjust to Denver, but now that he's adjusted, I think he is a solid kicker, and I would love for the Broncos to bring him back. So, of course, that is going to be an obvious re-sign for me. Next up, it is going to be Mike Purcell. Now, Mike Purcell is a Colorado native. He actually went to one of my rival high schools, but he's in his 30s, so I don't know if the Broncos are going to bring him back. Here is the current depth chart. So, Jonathan Harris, and this isn't just like depth chart I went based off of this isn't just defensive tackle as the depth chart. I went based off of both left, right ends, and defensive tackle. So this is everyone combined. But we have Jonathan Harris, who is a free agent, DJ Jones, Zach Allen, Matt Henningsen, Mike Purcell, Elijah Garcia, who really shined in the preseason games this season, Ioma Uwazurike, the 4th-round pick who got suspended for the entire season for gambling, Jordan Jackson, and Rashard Lawrence. Now, here were Mike Purcell's stats last season. Played in 16 games, 25 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 5 quarterback hits, 0 sacks. I think his playing time was definitely reduced, and as much as it hurts me to say because he is a Colorado native, I think we're going to have to let him walk just due to the age and then him being kind of filtered out of the defense. I think the writing is on the wall that Mike Purcell will not be back next season. Although, like I said, I could be wrong. This is just what I think is going to happen. Next up, we got K'Waun Williams, who was our slot corner 2 seasons ago. We moved off Bryce Callahan, signed K'Waun Williams, who was one of the best slot corners at the time, coming over from San Francisco, but dealt with injuries this season. I don't believe he played at all this past season. And here is the cornerback depth chart. As you can see, we have PS2 obviously is the number 1. Fabian Moreau, who played opposite of PS2 this season, is also a free agent. Jaquan McMillan, the undrafted free agent, really started to shine as that slot corner. Struggled a little bit towards the end of the year, but I think what he showed, there was a lot of growth there for Jaquan McMillan. K'Waun Williams, of course, Damari Mathis, Riley Moss, Tremont Smith, and the undrafted free agent Art Green. So here are the 2022 stats of K'Waun Williams. 14 games, 44 tackles, 7 passes defended. His 1 interception, though, I believe it was the Jacksonville game in London, and he picked it with a cast on his arm. So that is pretty impressive. Not that it's going to affect his contract talks or his extension or re-signing, but I just think it's pretty cool that he had an interception with a cast. That's just a pretty cool stat in my opinion. But for me, I am going to have to let K'Waun Williams walk just due to the emergence, honestly, of Jaquan McMillan. I think that we don't need that slot corner anymore because I think the Broncos want to grow and develop Jaquan McMillan to be that. Jaquan McMillan, I think I said McMillian there, to be that slot corner. So to me, K'Waun Williams is going to have to be a walk. Next up, we have Cameron Fleming, one of the best swing tackles in the entire NFL. I believe he's getting a little bit up there in age, although I don't know his exact age. And here is where he is, obviously, in the depth chart. He is the number 3 swing tackle behind Garrett Bowles and Mike McGlinchey. Of course, the number 4 tackle is the undrafted free agent out of Illinois, Alex Palczewski. And honestly, I think that the Broncos might want to move forward with Alex Palczewski. Made the roster as an undrafted free agent. Obviously, the Broncos are high on him. Placed him on long-term IR this past season. And I do think that the Broncos might want to try and move him as that swing tackle. Of course, there's also DeMontre Jacobs and Quinn Bailey, who is also a free agent. So to me, it's tough for Cam Fleming. 6'5", 320-pound, 31-year-old. There's the age, like I said, I couldn't remember earlier. So to me, it's tough. You factor in, he's one of the best swing tackles, but he's not someone who you want to be starting a majority of your games. Obviously, as you don't want, any team doesn't want their swing tackle starting. But to me, I think I'm going to have to let Cam Fleming walk. Just the age of 31 and the Broncos having Alec Palczewski on the roster, I do think that the Broncos will probably be moving off of Cam Fleming this offseason. Next up, PJ Locke, one of the safeties, dealt with some injuries this year, but also played in place of Kareem Jackson when he was suspended, and then towards the end of the season as well when we released Kareem Jackson and he went back to the Texans. Here is the current safety depth chart. Of course, Justin Simmons is there. Caden Stearns, the 5th-round pick in 2021. Of course, PJ Locke. De'Laren Turner-Yell, the 5th-round pick in, was it 22, I believe? Yeah, 2022. J.L. Skinner, the 6th-round pick in 2023. Devon Key, and then Tanner McAllister, who we signed to a futures contract. So, what do we do with PJ Locke? Last season, only played in 8 games, like I said, dealt with some injuries, but had 84 tackles, 6 passes defended, and an interception. To me, I think the Broncos want to re-sign PJ Locke. I do. And I don't know what the contract is going to look like. Could be like a 2-year, 3-year deal. And honestly, even if he isn't the starting safety, I think Caden Stearns most likely is going to be the starting safety. Probably is going to compete. Well, obviously he's going to compete for that starting safety job. But if he doesn't win it, he is a very solid special teamer as well, and also can rotate in if one of the safeties needs a break and you want to switch up a different defensive look. So to me, PJ Locke was an easy re-signing. Next up, Michael Burton, the fullback. Now, you look at the stats here, and it doesn't look like a lot, but keep in mind that Michael Burton is primarily used for blocking. Of course, he did get some carries, but he was mostly used for blocking this past season. In 17 games, had 7 rush attempts for 9 yards, 3 targets, 3 receptions for 8 yards. But he is mostly going to be a blocking fullback, and he's that true fullback because the past few years, we had that kind of tight end hybrid fullback area where he would play both fullback and tight end. I'm trying to remember his name. He went to the Texans. I'm kind of having a mind fart right now, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The fullback, tight end hybrid, Andrew Beck. That's who it was. Andrew Beck played fullback and he played tight end for us. And so having that pure fullback is nice. And I'm going to have us re-signing Michael Burton to a 1-year deal. Nothing too crazy. 1-year deal, maybe league minimum, maybe like $1 million, something like that. I don't know. But I would like to see Michael Burton back in the offense for Sean Payton. Obviously, he was with him in New Orleans, and I think I would like, or I don't think, I know I would personally like to have Michael Burton back for at least another season. Next up is going to be Fabian Moreau. We kind of already talked about the corner depth here. He played as that number 2 cornerback opposite of Pat Surtain. Now, to me, it's do the Broncos want to keep him and pay him? Or do they want to go with Riley Moss, Damari Mathis, 2 young guys? Art Green is there, someone who I am personally super high on as an undrafted free agent out of Houston this past season. I don't know. Maybe the Broncos even draft another cornerback in this upcoming draft. So to me, it's tough if I want to bring back Fabian Moreau because he had flashes of like, yeah, he's a nice complementary corner to Pat Surtain. But then towards the end of this season, started to struggle a little bit as well. So here's his stats: 16 games, 46 tackles, 7 passes defended, and of course that 1 interception versus the Bills. And to me, I kind of went back and forth of, do I want to re-sign Fabian Moreau or do I think we should let him walk? And in the end, I decided to let us walk because I think we want to go with the young guys. At least Sean Payton wants to go with the young guys, in my opinion, in Damari Mathis. Maybe give him another shot. We traded up for Riley Moss, and I think the Broncos might want to give him a chance at cornerback as well. So to me, I think we are going to let Fabian Moreau go. Plus, I also think that we are going to draft a cornerback in this upcoming draft. Next up, it is going to be Lloyd Cushenberry, the center, who really started to improve year after year after year after being drafted in the 3rd round of the 2020 NFL Draft. Here's the current center depth. You got Lloyd Cushenberry as a starter. You got Alex Forsyth as the backup center, the 7th round pick from last season. You got Luke Wattenberg as well, who plays center and guard. I guess you also have Quinn Miners, but I like Quinn Miners as a guard, so I don't think we want to move him to center. So to me, Lloyd Cushenberry is the top center on this team. And at 6'4", 315 pounds, only 26 years old. And if there is one player, sorry for hitting the mic, if there is one player that I want the Broncos to bring back in this year's free agency class, it's Lloyd Cushenberry. He really anchored that offensive line and became one of our better offensive linemen this season. So it's a definite re-sign for me. I think that this is the biggest free agent that the Broncos need to re-sign and take care of is Lloyd Cushenberry. Really improved this season, and I want to sign him to a deal. I think it would be beneficial, sign him to a 3-4 year deal. That's just my opinion, but I think it is vital that the Broncos get Lloyd Cushenberry back on another contract and have him back on the team next season. Like I keep saying, this is the most important free agent, in my opinion, that the Broncos need to re-sign this offseason. Next up, we have Adam Troutman. Here is what the current tight end depth chart looks like. Greg Dulcich is the number 1 when he's healthy. Adam Troutman played tight end 1 for a majority of this season. Pretty much all this season because Dulcich was out for a majority of the season. Then Chris Manhertz, more of a blocking guy. Nate Atkins, I'd say more of a blocking guy. And same thing with Lucas Kroll, although we did use a lot of these guys in passing situations as well. And even Troutman is more of a blocking tight end than a receiving one. But to me, or I guess here, let's go over this. 17 games, 22 receptions on 35 targets, 204 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, do we bring back Adam Troutman? And that's going to be a yes. And the main reason for this is because I want the Broncos to draft a tight end in this year's draft. I kind of stuttered a little bit there, but I want the Broncos to draft a tight end in this class, more so a receiver. I'm a big fan of Jaheim Bell, so I would personally love if we were able to re-sign Jaheim Bell. Or not re-sign, but sorry, it's late. But draft Jaheim Bell because Dulcich has been fairly injury prone. And, even if we don't, I think Troutman is a solid depth guy. Even if it's on a 1-year, 2-year contract for Troutman, I think that we would benefit from having some tight end depth. But again, I could also see the Broncos having Adam Troutman walk. Next up, Jonathan Harris. We already spoke about the defensive line depth, how it's not only defensive ends or defensive tackles. It's both left and right defensive end and the defensive tackle. Here is Jonathan Harris's stats from last season. Played in all 17 games, 43 tackles, 4 tackles for loss and quarterback hits, and 1 sack. He started the season I guess he was a starter at the start of the season. That's kind of a little bit of a tiny tongue twister there. But then kind of got phased out of the starting role just a little bit. And so, to me, I am going to let Jonathan Harris walk. I do think that early in the draft, in my opinion, I think the Broncos were going to draft a quarterback in the first round, and then if we trade down, we're going to draft a defensive lineman in the second, or if we don't trade down, I think we're going to draft a defensive lineman in the third, because we really need interior defensive linemen who can stop the run. And so I just don't think we're going to have the money to re-sign Jonathan Harris, and I think we're going to go with some other guys or some other depth that we have, and then as well look to the draft to fill that position as well. Next up is going to be Justin Strnad. We kind of talked about the linebackers at the top of the video. 5th round pick in 2020 out of Wake Forest. Really has been a backup for the majority of his career, and so you can see the stats right there. To me, it's a walk. If the Broncos want to bring him back for depth, that's fine. But to me, I think if we're re-signing Josie Jewell or if we sign another guy in free agency, we got Alex Singleton. We got Jonas Griffith, who re-signed to a futures contract. We've got Ben Neiman. And heck, we might even draft a linebacker maybe in the 7th round or towards the end of the draft. So to me, Justin Strnad, it is going to be a walk. Finally, I believe this is the last free agent. We'll have to double check, but it is going to be Quinn Bailey. Once again, we've already talked about the tackles when going over Cam Fleming. Quinn Bailey's a 28-year-old at 6'6", 323 pounds. And for me, it is going to be a walk. Like I said, I think it's going to be Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, Alex Palkowski, maybe have DeMontre Jacobs back as well. If you want to roll with 4 tackles, maybe you draft someone. But to me, I think the Broncos will most likely be moving off of Quinn Bailey this season. So, with all that said, keep in mind, here are some future contracts that the Broncos might need to sign. And here are the 2025, or some of the free agents in 2025. There's a ton more. But here are the notable ones. Cornerback Pat Surtain, guard Quinn Miners, edge rusher Baron Browning, offensive tackle Garrett Bowles, safety Justin Simmons, wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, my personal favorite player, edge rusher Jonathan Cooper, cornerback Jaquan McMillan, and safety Caden Stearns. And again, there's a lot more guys. So just keep that in mind. If the Broncos don't re-sign as a lot of the guys that I said, it's going to be to pay Pat Surtain and Quinn Miners. Those are 2 guys who the Broncos absolutely need to pay. I'd say Jaquan McMillan as well. Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper. We'll see what happens with Justin Simmons. Jerry Jeudy, a person I'd like to re-sign, but that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, those are some future contracts that the Broncos need to sign. So just keep an eye out for that. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. Make sure you leave a like if you did enjoy. I got some videos coming out very, very soon. It's going to be some more mock draft. It's going to be some more about the combine. So I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That support is greatly appreciated. Anyways, my name is Parker, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.